Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and this past week we had a bunch of news about the upcoming Apple Watch Series 8, iPhone 14, and we'll also talk about when to expect iOS 16 public betas and more. This is your news update for the week of July 4th, 2022. This past week, Steve Jobs will be posthumously awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom, according to the White House. You can see on the White House's website that they're announcing the recipients of the Presidential Medal of Freedom, and if we scroll down, you can see there's different recipients such as Simone Biles, but if you keep going, you'll see Steve Jobs. And it says Steve Jobs was the co-founder, chief executive, and chair of Apple, CEO of Pixar, and held a leading role at the Walt Disney Company. His vision, imagination, and creativity led to inventions that have and continue to change the way the world communicates, as well as transforming the computer, music, film, and wireless industry. So it's great that he's receiving this. Unfortunately, it didn't happen while he was alive, but either way, he's been given this honor. This past week was the 15th anniversary of the original iPhone. It's incredible to think that it actually came out that long ago in 2007, and you can see here's an original iPhone 1. It still works, and this is one I've shown in different videos. It's actually not my original one, but it is one since I didn't have one, and as you can see, it's in pretty decent shape, but it's been out for about 15 years at this point. So it's incredible to think how far we've come along from this first iPhone and iOS, or iPhone OS 1. So you can see it here. It still works. It's a little bit slow compared to what we expect today, but if we rotate, we can go into cover flow and things like this that I missed that I wish they'd bring back. Either way, it's 15 years old. If you had an original iPhone, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below, or when did you get your first iPhone? Let me know in the comments below. Now, unfortunately, if you live in Japan, they increased the price of the iPhone by up to 25% due to the fall of the value of the yen. Apple makes these adjustments sometimes in different countries based on the local currency value, but right now, that's a huge jump up in price. So if you were planning to buy a phone and when the iPhone 14 launches, you may have to pay a hefty price above what you were planning on. This past week, Apple updated its support app with support for Arabic. So if you needed that language, or that would be helpful for someone you know that might need a little bit of extra help with their phone if they're having issues, whether that be physical or performance and more, this is a great app to send them to help them sort of troubleshoot their device if they need to. You can also add a contact number that's preferred as well. You couldn't do that before. Now you have the option to do that. Apple also updated their Configurator app. This is an app that's great for businesses and different places that need to manage a bunch of devices, and they've finally added iOS onboarding, which should greatly ease some of the workload for nonprofits and schools using iOS devices. So it's something they finally added where you can use Configurator on the iPhone. Apple this past week launched a new invite-only Apple Community Plus program that's meant to give perks and recognize top contributors in the Apple support community. So on these forums, for example, Apple says it's their way of showing appreciation for contributors' help, attitude, and expertise. So if you're someone that's on these forums regularly, I'd love to hear from you if you're actually in that Community Plus program. Just like last week I mentioned in the USA, where they're wanting to force Apple to switch to USB-C on all their devices, it looks like Brazil is the latest country to try and force Apple to make those changes. So the EU was first, then the USA, and now it looks like Brazil. So they'll probably change it anyway, just because they're going to have to either way, but we should see that. I'm not sure we'll see it with iPhone 14, but we could see it as soon as iPhone 15. We'll have to wait and see. Now, if you follow Apple's earnings on their stocks, there's actually a new earnings call scheduled for July 28th. So if you follow Apple at all on their earnings, you'll have a new earnings call then. If we go to Apple, you can see that information here typically, where you go into the headlines and more about Apple, but you can see that and more information here, as well as jump on the call if you want to listen to it live on July 28th. From July 1st to July 4th, there's actually a new offer if you buy an Apple TV, where they're giving you a $50 gift card when you purchase one. So you can see that on their website at the top. This is valid up until July 14th, where you can get that $50 gift card, and it's possible they're getting ready to get rid of these sort of Apple TVs we currently have and prepare for a new one, as a new Siri remote was found in the code of iOS 16. So they could be planning to update this soon. We'll talk more about that a little bit later. Now, last week I talked about Apple's back to school offers, where they offer this every year, and now Apple is providing new subscribers of Apple Music students a free pair of Beats Flex earphones. It's available to new accounts subscribing to Apple Music in the cheaper student plan starting from June 22nd. The offer provides users in the United States and the United Kingdom free Beats Flex earphones. So US and UK only, unfortunately, but you'll be able to get your hands on those. I don't see Canada mentioned anywhere, but it does look like you'll be able to get Beats Flex if you wanted some of those. Also available for purchases right now, if you're using Apple Wallet, there's additional cash back offers up to 4% at select retailers until the end of July. Stores such as Petco, StubHub, Hotel Tonight, Fandango, Yeti, and more. So those are all available now. If you use your Apple Card, you'll be able to get a little bit more money back. Now, in case you haven't heard, this past week, the FCC commissioner wrote a letter to Apple and Google advising them to remove TikTok from the App Store due to national security concerns. So TikTok apparently is something that they're concerned about. We've heard about this in the past, and currently any member of the military is apparently not allowed to have it on their phones. So if Apple and Google do not remove it, it's possible we could see them force the removal if they believe it necessary. I'd love to hear what you think about that in the comments below. Also in the App Store, if you're in South Korea, you no longer have to use Apple's in-app purchase options for payments. They can now use outside payment methods. If you're a developer and you don't want to go through Apple, they now have the option to do that to comply with local law. So maybe someone's offering an in-app purchase, such as maybe YouTube Premium, they can now charge within their own store and not have to pay those fees through Apple. So that's a big win for those that have been wanting that. Again, something that doesn't really affect the user too much unless you don't have access to Apple's payment methods. Otherwise, that's available now, but only in South Korea. We could see that expand a little bit later around the world. Now, according to Mac Rumors, Apple plans to launch the new M2 MacBook Air as soon as next week. That means that we would have pre-orders as soon as this coming Friday. So if that's true, it means that it would be available on the 15th, and we would have pre-orders starting this coming Friday, usually at 8 a.m., where you can pick whichever one you want and then get it the following week. However, if you want to get one and it does go live on Friday, of course, we should know more about this later this week. If this is true, make sure you get in early because I'm sure they'll sell out pretty quickly as it's a redesign. So you've got 4 different colors now and more. And of course, I'll try and get my hands on one if I can as well. Also, with iPadOS 16, there's been concern that the iPad will no longer act as a home hub when you're using home devices. However, Apple has clarified, stating that the iPads can still be used as a home hub, but not for the new features coming later this year with iPadOS 16. So you'll still need an Apple TV for that to act as a home hub or sometimes a HomePod, and they will not work with Matter-based accessories, basically. So that's something that you want to make sure that you have maybe an Apple TV if you're wanting to use specific accessories. However, they could clarify that later in the year as we get closer to the launch of iPadOS 16. Now, iOS 16 public beta is expected very soon. It could be as soon as this week. Since we had iOS 16 beta 2 a couple weeks ago, typically they'll release a public beta around the time of beta 3. You can see this on beta.apple.com where it says coming soon, but they haven't verified the date yet. We should know that probably as soon as tomorrow. So we could see it as soon as tomorrow, and then we'll have the public beta and probably iOS 16 beta 3 as well, either the same day or maybe a couple days later like they did last year. We can also expect iOS 15.6 release candidate this week, or possibly beta 5. Based on what we've seen in the past, typically that's what we'll see. So we should see probably iOS 16 public beta and iOS 15.6 RC, or maybe beta 5, but if we do see an RC, expect the final release next week. Typically, that's what Apple does every year. When they release an RC, then the following week or even later in the week, they'll release the full version to the public. So look for those, and of course, I'll keep you updated as soon as I know more. With iPhone 14, we're expecting an update in September, and that's typically what we see every year. We expect an iPhone 14, 14 Max, 14 Pro, and 14 Pro Max, and you can see these are the models I showed in a separate video. However, Apple's been working on their own 5G modems for iPhone for some time, but apparently there's some technical issues either with heat, or it's just not expected to be in this year's iPhones or maybe even next year's iPhones. This could be a technical issue or a legal one, as there's been many patent issues with 5G between Apple and Qualcomm in the past. So it's hard to say what the actual issue is. Hopefully Apple can get that done and make them more efficient, maybe better than what Qualcomm can offer, but it's hard to say if we'll ever see those. We just know that they're working on them. Foxconn, who assembles the iPhone, has begun its annual hiring for iPhone production. Last week, I talked about how Apple had gotten everything ready and it was ready to go. Now it looks like they're starting production and will have more than enough for September. However, a few weeks ago, Digitime said they expect orders of iPhone to be the same, but Ming-Chi Kuo is now saying that they expect the orders to be 10% less than last last year due to overall demand being a little bit lower with everything going on around the world. Now, with the upcoming Apple Watch Series 8, as Apple increments all the Apple Watches every single year, it's not expected to get a major redesign according to Mark Gurman, but could sense temperature and let you know if you have a fever. This is something that's been rumored for quite some time, and if Apple can get it right with the sensors in the bottom for temperature sensing, we could see that in this upcoming version. We also expect an extreme sports version where it would be even more durable, and also Mark Gurman hinted at an updated display, and then recently Ross Young and Jeff Poo have said that they expect that as well, where it would be 5% larger up to 1.99 inches. It could be due to the rumored flat edge display we've heard about, where the display itself would be flat instead of rounded around the outside edges, similar to the iPhone, but we're not expected to get a flat edge design of the iPhone according to many different leakers or people that know what it looks like. So maybe we'll get a surprise this year. I'm not really holding my breath with the Apple Watch rumors as they were so wrong last year. Either way, we can expect some new features and changes. Apple TV is expected to get an update, as I mentioned before, and it looks like so far we expect an updated processor, 4 gigs of RAM, and a new Siri remote. Little else is known at this point, but if they're trying to get rid of a bunch of them with that $50 gift card, like I mentioned earlier, we could see an updated version of this as soon as later this year, or maybe even this summer. We don't really know, but Apple could update this. Maybe we'll get a new redesign at this point, but so far, there's no information about that. AirPods Pro 2 are still expected later this year, but last week there were some rumors expecting temperature and heart rate monitoring built into the upcoming AirPods. However, Mark Gurman this week is saying that these features are unlikely but have been explored within Apple, but aren't really likely to make production. However, Mark Gurman does expect the updated AirPods Pro to still be later this year, since we haven't really had a replacement since 2019, and they're definitely due. Also, Apple recently patented something new to do with AirPods where it would use ultrasonic technology to help us change maybe volume controls and more if the surface was sort of wet or maybe damp from working out or more, or if it was raining, and you would be still able to change different settings using the touch on the outside of the device. That would be super helpful for a lot of people, definitely if they were able to implement it into the iPhone as well, but it's just a recent patent, so this could be years down the road or it could be very soon. When it comes to iPad, Apple has apparently already done sourcing its first generation OLED panels for upcoming iPads maybe in the next year, with them already sourcing second gen panels now. This seems a bit odd to me as they pushed very heavily with mini LED, and maybe Apple's just planning to launch those, or maybe they're just making sure they have a backup if micro LED isn't ready in time. Either way, mini LED is great. There's downsides to either mini LED and OLED, or it could just be they're moving all of the regular iPads to OLED so they can change the design, make it more power efficient with dark modes and more. So it's possible we could see that, and it would be probably next year or even later than that at this point. Apple is working on an iMac with a larger display according to Mark Gurman still, and we expected this already, but we got a Mac Studio display. Either way, there's been no replacement for the iMac 27-inch, so hopefully we see something sooner rather than later, but Mark Gurman thinks it might launch as late as maybe with the M3 chipset, so that could be over a year away. And so that's everything for this past week. Some exciting things coming up this week with iOS 16's public beta and beta 3, as well as iOS 15.6 and some new changes and more. Let me know what you're most excited for in the comments below. And of course, if you'd like to get your hands on this wallpaper, I'll link it in the description. If you haven't subscribed already though, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.